Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are the Sun's football reporter Jack Rosser, the Athletics football correspondent David Ornstein. Welcome to you both, guys. We'll hear from you shortly. Let's quickly run you through a couple of the Back Pages as we have them. Telegraph Sport splashing on that amazing win for Everton at Old Trafford in the Monday Night Football. The heated exchange between Idrissa Gueye and Michael Keane as the main image. It got physical. Gueye got sent off. They also report Michael Vaughan's criticism of England's Ashes plans. Yes, that first test was far too short, wasn't it? Done inside 2 days. The same two stories prominent on the back page of The Guardian. There's detail on the row between England's Tom Curry and the Argentina coach, Felipe Contapone. I will get to the papers and get Jackson Davis' thoughts in just a moment. Before we do, and we see how they're being covered, let's hear from David Moyes, because his Everton team played 77 minutes with 10 men at Old Trafford, but still won. Here's what Moyes said to Sky Sports.
I thought the referee could have maybe taken a little bit longer to think about it, maybe just gone over and sorted it, had to think about it. I'm sort of getting told the rules of the game means if you slap even your own player or you lift an arm in some way, then you could be in trouble. But you know, there's another side of it. I quite like my players fighting each other and getting annoyed with each other because it was a bad ball or someone didn't do the right action. I think that's part of it. If you want a winning team and you want that resilience and the toughness which got us the result, then I think you have to have players who are going to act that way. And I'm disappointed we get the sending off, but everybody will tell you, we've all been footballers, and the ones who have been will tell you that quite often, you'll get angry with your teammates.
Well, I mean, Everton won, so I do wonder whether that kind of coloured the answer slightly for David Moyes, because he likes seeing that kind of spirit in his squad. Before we get on to that bit, though, gents, Jack, let me start off with you. In the Daily Telegraph, moment of madness, Gueye sent off for slapping teammate Keane, but Everton still win. So Moyes said, it's in the laws of the game that, if you do get physical, you do raise your hands, you've got to go, essentially. I mean, it was bizarre, though, wasn't it?
It completely bizarre. It is, as the Telegraph say on the back there, a complete moment of madness. I'm sort of agreeing with David Moyes there, that, laws of the game and everything, and by the word of the law, it should be a red card. But half of refereeing is sort of feeling and managing the game and seeing how things are going. And it doesn't feel like a really aggressive moment that maybe deserves a red card. It's definitely not got the aggression of, Bowyer and Kieran Dyer and going way back Bruce Grobler and Steve McManaman. There's none of that sort of proper blood and thunder anger there between them. Michael Keane keeps his resolve very well, and Gueye does have that one moment. I think the bigger problem that Moyes will have is that doing something like that, whether it's to one of your, especially to one of your teammates, but especially to an opponent as well, gives the referee the decision to make and puts the referee in that position where they have to make that sort of decision. I think that's the thing that Moyes will be more frustrated with, the sort of loss of his head in that one moment to then put his team in the position where they have to defend like they did incredibly tonight and put his team at a disadvantage. He's very calm and collected after it there. I wonder if there were, it would have been amazing to be in that dressing room at half-time to see just how high he hit the roof. I saw him sort of jogging down the touchline at Old Trafford, probably to make sure he got in there before Michael Keane did and have a stern word with him. But yeah, I think it's one of those, it's the anger will be there because he's given the referee the decision to make by doing something so utterly needless in that moment.
Our esteemed producer on the show gave me a stat just about sort of 20 minutes ago, this from Opta, that United have lost a Premier League game at Old Trafford after seeing the opposition pick up a red card for the first time ever, because it had happened on 46 occasions that the opposition had lost a man in the game, but United had won 36 and drawn the 10 others. It just goes to show, if you're going to play against 10 men, a David Moyes coached 10 men is probably the worst 10 men you've got to face. David, do you think in a weird sort of way that sort of sparked Everton to sort of be the way they were and then going, got the winner after that, but just really, as Jack says, hold out magnificently after that?
Firstly, David, it was stupidity. Both of them reacted quite petulantly to a pretty innocuous incident at a stage of the game that was not particularly stressful for Everton. But thereafter, I do think it galvanised Everton on the evidence that we saw. There was a great sense of unity between the players. They were scrapping for their lives defensively, but they also showed a lot of attacking ambition and coherence going forward. I thought they thoroughly deserved the win, even though United obviously had much more of the possession at times owing to their numerical advantage. And I think David Moyes also had a point to prove. Such a poor record away to Man United, not a great record when he was Manchester United manager, and that would have been a particularly sweet victory for him. He's had a magnificent career, and this is a moment that he'll cherish. Manchester United were on a really good run as well. They'd won their last 3 home games. They were 5 unbeaten in total, and people were starting to talk about whether things were finally coming together for Ruben Amorim in what was, let's remember, his 1-year anniversary of the first game he took charge of for United. And that's a pretty painful defeat for them, especially now they've got to go away to Crystal Palace on Sunday. Everton will really have a spring in their step, especially given such a poor away record. I think it was just 1 win this season, back on August the 30th against Wolves. And before that, it was way back in May at Newcastle last season. So a massively impressive display from those players who remained on the pitch. They can patch up their differences with Gana Gueye hereafter, and Moyes will be absolutely buzzing with that.
And of course, David Moyes finally getting a win at Old Trafford as a visiting manager, and Everton sitting just above Liverpool in the table. So lots of reasons for him to smile. I think also, along with Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall's winner, Jack, a word for Jordan Pickford?
He was absolutely fantastic, wasn't he? He's a real leader for club and country. Some of the saves he made in there were superb reaction saves and really helping Everton get over the line. And I think the way he marshals his back four as well is just so impressive. He's someone that can get incredibly emotional, but is also superbly and supremely confident in his own ability and what he tells his defenders to do. You could see him there whenever they were having to defend corner after corner, picking people up, keeping them going. And also just that composure he showed in the moment with Kiernan Gueye as well, to march Idrissa Gueye away, push all of the other teammates away from him as well, not draw anyone else into it, get him down the tunnel and off the pitch as quick as possible. He sort of set the tone for everyone in that Everton side. And it wasn't just him in the back four. The players in the midfield, Iliman Ndiaye had a fantastic game. James Garner, Dewsbury Hall as well, an incredible goal. But just their work as a unit, Grealish there as well, all of the energy they put in, and you could see on their faces at the end, the celebration. I think Jake O'Brien finished with blood pouring from his nose, which just showed how much they put into tonight and to getting that huge result. I think it's their first win as a club at Old Trafford since 2013. David Moyes has won there once before, I think, with West Ham in the Carabao Cup, and that did mean an awful lot to him. But to go and do it in the Premier League with Everton as well will be a huge moment for him, and one that he'll rightfully celebrate tonight as well.
More stats for you guys, again, courtesy of our esteemed producer on the show. The last time that Everton won at Manchester United, guess who was the Manchester United manager? David Moyes. There we are. What about Everton, though, David? Looking ahead now, into the run-up into Christmas, they've got some tough tests. Newcastle at home, and of course, they've just beat Manchester City. They've got Chelsea, who are second. They've got Arsenal. I mean, even Forest at home. Forest have beaten Liverpool, so they've suddenly found a bit of a groove for Sean Dyche. Where do you see them in terms of the Premier League and the ultimate reckoning? So in that mid-table where they are currently, or can they aspire any higher?
Well, firstly, the Newcastle game is one they might not be too apprehensive about, given Newcastle's away record this season, and Newcastle will be coming off the back of an away trip in European football tomorrow night at Marseille. And I was really struck by what Dewsbury Hall said on Sky after the game about the shift in mentality at Everton now. And that was one of the reasons that attracted him to come to the club. Of course, there's a new stadium and new ownership as well that ties into that. But there just seems to be a freshness about the place after all their PSR setbacks and the struggles financially, but also against relegation season after season before leaving Goodison Park. And it it became a narrative in recent years that were they going to go the other way? And before that, it was, can they compete for European football? They had Champions League ambitions. And slowly but surely, they do seem to be edging back up in the right direction. And I think they'd have their eye on a top half finish now. Jack talked through some of the players there, but there was huge quality on show tonight. It wasn't an agricultural performance. They were highly proficient with the ball at their feet and some of the patterns of play, despite only having 10 men. And I know we referred there to Pickford as being an emotional character. I think that was more historic. Now he seems to be composed, the maturity to separate the incident between his two teammates. For England, he's been near faultless as well. And it goes all the way through the team, the experience of Tarkowski and Keane. The talent from Ndiaye is just outrageous. He's going to be a real loss with the AFCON, but he's a magnificent player. And with Grealish having a point to prove, even Barry up front showing moments of quality today. And so suddenly they've got quality, they've got some depth. This is a team that came into the season with, I think, or finished last season with 12 players registered to the club through a combination of contracts expiring and players who it was just time to go, and it's absolutely fantastic to see them upwardly mobile again in a good financial position. But yeah, you're right, there's some tough fixtures coming up, but tonight will give them belief. They'll be emboldened that they can strive forward and be looking up the table rather than down.
OK, thank you very much indeed for the moment, chaps. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers. The Mirror also has plenty on that Everton win, and they also show Cole Palmer back in training with Chelsea after his toe injury. More on that next. You're watching Back Pages tonight. Welcome back to you at home. Welcome back to Jack Rosser from The Sun, the Athletics football correspondent David Ornstein with us as well. Right, we've talked about Manchester United against Everton. Let's talk about Manchester City. And David, their defeat to Newcastle sparked some, well, I think probably the highest of emotions that we've seen from Pep Guardiola for a while. And of course, he was asked about his conversation with Bruno Guimaraes and the incident with the camera operator at St James's Park, and he offered an apology, and he was pretty direct with that. What's your take on exactly what happened with Pep and how he's reacted to it?
It was almost back to the emotional Pep of last season without the face scratches. But now he's cut a much more relaxed figure, and understandably so this season. It's been calmer at City for sure. Their recruitment has served them well and results have been better. But this was a match in which they felt afflicted by refereeing decisions. He got more and more emotional. He knew what a big game it was going away to Newcastle. And with Arsenal then having the opportunity to accelerate away at the top of the league on Sunday, they really missed a golden chance to, in their mind, I'm sure, pick up points. And it was a bit sort of bizarre. It's not unusual to see him coming on the pitch and talking to players. And Bruno, he pointed out, they've got a long-term relationship. They speak in the tunnel after games and they know each other well. Manchester City have been heavily linked with Bruno in the past. So I think that was more of a conversation. The camera operator incident was very strange, and there was all sorts going on with Joe Linton having pushing matches against other opponents too. So yeah, a bit of a loss of control, but now to the Champions League action, and you know, City have started really well. They'll want to consolidate a place in the top 8. They're unbeaten in it, unlike last season, which was a disaster in Europe. So yeah, it's just another event in the lifetime of Pep Guardiola in English football, and I don't think it's the end of the world, despite his comments suggesting, you know, he feels ashamed.
Anything deeper to it for you, Jack? I mean, is it any kind of sign of how things are starting to get to Guardiola? It's 4 defeats in 12 Premier League games for him now.
I mean, David mentioned it there. We're a very long way from the place he was in last season, where he looked really on the edge at times. That game where he was scratching his head, watching his team collapse in front of his eyes. I think he probably should be ashamed for going for the camera operator. I think it's a bit embarrassing when he goes off at opposition players for no reason. We've all got examples going back years, you know, Bruno there, Nathan Redmond a long time ago, where he seemed to be shouting at him for not attacking enough, or I think that was his excuse back then. You can almost understand it when it's a player, one of his players, almost performatively doing it on the pitch, having a go at them even after victories at times, more for the cameras. But I think to do it with someone that's outside of that bubble of the two teams on the pitch is really quite embarrassing, and not something that a manager at a club that size and a figure of Pep's stature should be doing. And fair play to him, he's come out and apologised quickly in the moment, he says, and then back that up today. I'm not quite sure I like the sort of thinly veiled threat that he's going to unload on the referees again later in the week once he's got the Champions League game out of the way. I think he said something like, we'll talk again about them on Friday. It just drags it out and creates a bit of a drama that's not necessary there in that sort of situation. But I think he knows that the opponent they've got up against them for the title now in Mikel Arteta's Arsenal side, of course, they had that blip at Sunderland, but they just look so ruthless and efficient. And whether they lose Odegaard or Gyökeres or now Gabriel, they keep taking these strides forwards and taking things on the chin and moving forward. He knows there are very fine margins, and they were points they maybe couldn't afford to lose come the end of the season, that Newcastle game, and that'll be a moment he looks to. And I think that's one of the cracks where we see it getting to him. But like I said, we are a long way from where he was mentally this time last year.
Yeah, 7 points the gap to Arsenal. They're in third behind Chelsea. Let's talk about one of Pep's former players in Cole Palmer, who is back in training with Chelsea. Back page of the Mirror. They're on the right-hand side. Here we toe, because of course he had that little accident, didn't he? And he broke his toe. But obviously previously he'd had a few other injury niggles. David, how crucial are these days? You know, we're thinking of this not just in terms of Chelsea's season, but also in terms of him potentially getting back into that England squad for the World Cup.
Yeah, it's massive for Palmer. It's been a frustrating time, especially for England. He's barely played for them since the Euros, and you would have expected him perhaps to be starting in that 10 role if things had been different. And now this unfortunate setback. It was quite strange that it seemed like it was quite a significant problem when the news broke in Maresca's news conference the other day, and then suddenly you see him on the training pitches today with this adapted boot. And we know of players who have played with a broken toe, especially the little one. I think you can get an injection that allows you to get by, which isn't ideal. But a player of his importance, they do want to get him back in contention. I'm not sure if he'll be available to feature against Barcelona tomorrow, but certainly Arsenal on the horizon at the weekend, and even if he doesn't make that, to just get back in soon. Not that Chelsea have really struggled without him. They're up there. They seem to have a bit of a title challenge of their own, potentially. Tomorrow, though, it seems maybe it'll be more about Esteval, the rising star of Chelsea, and up against Lamine Yamal. Same age, same position, and very similar statistics and trajectories. Maybe Lamar, despite being a tiny bit younger, is a bit ahead of him. And I think that's going to be an amazing show. There's a piece by James Gearbrandt in the Times sort of comparing the two of them. But yeah, Cole Palmer will want to get in on the act as soon as possible, because he was really the star boy, and he won't want to be forgotten about for club, or as you say, for country, because time is ticking and he really needs to get in that squad that Thomas Tuchel will name for the friendlies in March in the build-up to the World Cup. And he's not first in line at the moment, and we know the quality he has, but he's got some work to do.
Jack, we're starting to run out of time, but just a brief comment from you on Cole Palmer and his situation.
Yeah, I think David mentioned there, it is a bit bizarre to see him, running around at training, joining in with everyone today. The way Maresca was speaking in his press conference today, it didn't seem like we were going to see him as part of that group training session. They still think it'll be too early for him to feature against Arsenal. But I think what England will want to see is that he just comes back and can stay fit over a period of weeks, because we know he is a player that when these big games come along, regardless of what's going on around him, he can step up and make a contribution. He did it in the Euros final off the bench for England. He's done it countless times for Chelsea, and is really taking a stride forward every time he plays, almost. Even though he had a difficult time towards the end of last season, he can bounce back and really make a difference. So the sooner he's back for Chelsea, the better. They've not struggled too much without him. Enzo Fernandez has been fantastic. João Pedro's chipped in with goals. Pedro Neto's playing well. But Thomas Tuchel will seriously want him in his squad for the World Cup next summer.
OK, around 3 minutes left. Let's talk about some other stories. Back page of The Guardian is looking at England's cricketers over in Australia. Of course, they lost that first Ashes test inside 2 days. Lights, Canberra, no action. England's flopped, snub, floodlit match before day-night test. Another just inquiry into England's preparations for the challenges that remain, David, and they need to start getting things right.
Oh, they do. It's humiliating how England crashed out of the first test, and now they've got a hell of a long time to build up. They've turned down this day-night game in Canberra. Depending on who you read, Mike Atherton in the Times says that it's the right decision. You've got Michael Vaughan in the Telegraph saying it's the wrong decision, and most people think it's the wrong decision. But the proof will be in the pudding, how they do in the second test. If they do well, maybe it will be seen as wise. If they do badly, the recriminations are going to be fierce if they go 2-0 down in the test series. It gives them time in obviously in the WACA the Gabba in Brisbane to train in the nets, get under the lights for one day, I think it is. And there's big pressure now building, of course, on Stokes and McCullum and their team to bounce back in that second test. It's not going to be easy. They've got a far inferior record in these day-nighters to Australia, who are familiar with them. And it's clearly not going the way England wanted so far, but they have got the quality to fight back in this series.
Jack, what's your take on this? In the Telegraph, Michael Vaughan saying it's nonsense. If it comes back to bite them, then it will be a big failure of the management. He had said that it would be amateurish not to send the likes of Zach Crawley and Joe Root for extra match practice. But what's your take?
Yeah, the thing I can't understand, I understand the argument from Stokes and McCullum that this is our plan and we're not going to waver from it because of one bad result at the start, regardless of how humiliating it was to collapse like that. I do understand sticking with that. What I can't quite understand is why that wasn't in their plan in the first place, why it wasn't the part of it to go and give some of these players an experience of a day-night test. The different sort of conditions of it early on in those tests, nobody really knows where the ball's going to go, what it's going to do. You want a bit of a feel for that. And I also, it says in the piece on the back of the Guardian that McCullum opened this up. If you want to go, you can. I don't quite understand some of those batsmen then that have not put their hand up to go and just get a bit more of a feel for it. They've hardly had a knock out in the middle in those 2 days, really. They didn't last out in the middle very long at all. So I can't really understand why it wasn't initially planned, or why a couple of them haven't at least taken the chance to go and do it. And if they do continue to that form of the first test, then the criticism is going to be incredible.
Let's finish off on an intriguing story that we're running on our website, skysports.com, and it's to do with Max Whitlock. 3 gold medals at Olympics in 2016 and in 2021, but it sounds like he's gunning for more, David. 2028 LA Games, fancies it. What do you think?
I think it's a lovely story. You don't tend to see gymnasts competing at this sort of age. It's a young man and women's sport, and good luck to him getting into the lycra again. But he seems up for it. It's a challenge that he's relishing, especially for his daughter, who will be 9 at the time of the LA Games, and he wants her to see him strutting his stuff. He's Britain's most successful gymnast ever, and after the disappointment of Paris, he'll want to add to his medal collection. So yeah, good luck to him. It's a lovely tale.
We are here for it. Fantastic. We're going to call it there. Thank you very much indeed, Jack and David. If you missed any of the show, another chance to see back pages tonight, 1:30. Also available as a podcast.